Today's video is brought to you by Surfshark. Hello and welcome to my channel. Rhino here. Today, I'm headed back to Ray Comfort's channel, Living Waters, to see what he's been up to recently. So I found a video called Christian Surprises Evolutionist when he mentions this critical flaw. Knowing Ray, the critical flaw is going to be something like, but the fish is still a fish though, which is not actually a flaw in evolution, just in Ray's understanding of it, but he's nothing if not consistent. Along those lines, I currently have no idea how much of his video I'm going to respond to. I've watched enough to know that it's worth a response, but I haven't watched all the way through yet, and I assume at some point he's going to get to his typical, "Are you a good person?" shtick. Sorry about the impression, I'm bad at it. And I'll probably tap out at that point because we've all seen it a million times before, and if you haven't, you're not actually missing anything. It's just Ray trying to convince people of the Christian idea that everyone is a horrible, shitty person, therefore God is super awesome for tolerating you. You know, the kind of tactics abusers use to keep their victims in line. Our God is an awesome God, or something. Let's take a look. But first, a word from our sponsor, Surfshark. Merry holidays and happy Christmas, everyone. It's time to treat yourself to Surfshark. Surfshark VPN is a virtual private network which allows you to appear to be connected to the internet from any location where Surfshark has a server. By connecting through Surfshark, you can access streaming services from different geographic locations, which means you may have access to additional libraries of movies and TV shows that aren't available in your home area. But that's not all they do. With their Clean Web 2.0 features, you can automatically block ads, reject unwanted cookies without fumbling through that pop-up first, get alerts when a website was the target of a data breach, and block malware. Seriously, if Clean Web 2.0 were the only product they offered, that would be more than worth the price just for getting rid of the cookies pop-up. Every now and then I have to use a browser profile that doesn't have Clean Web on it, and just ordinary browsing without it is so frustrating. But on top of the thing that I seem to consider to be their main feature, there's also a VPN, which they seem to think is actually the main feature. It adds an extra layer of encryption to your devices, keeping you secure on public networks. I recently flew to Alabama to participate in a seance with Richard Carrier, Surus, and Godless Engineer. Long story.
Oh, magical Jesus, please guide our hands to answer our questions. Amen.
Surfshark VPN is easy to use and simple to install. They don't monitor, track, or store your data, and it works on phones, tablets, and laptops with no extra fees. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it out completely risk-free. So head on over to surfshark.com/Rhino to get 4 extra months of Surfshark with your subscription at an unbeatable price. So again, that's surfshark.com/RHINO for 4 months for free. This is a limited time offer, so sign up today. And remember, by signing up for Surfshark VPN, you're helping to support my channel. Thank you.
I'm going to point out a huge blunder evolution believers have made. And I'm also going to share with you one incredible truth that destroys evolution in 5 seconds.
Right out of the gate, we get definitive proof that Ray isn't taking this seriously. Evolution is an incredibly broad topic with lots of ground that you'd have to cover to cast doubt on even a tiny sliver of it. Do you know why my videos are usually over 30 minutes long? Because I take it seriously.
Because I take it seriously. I take it seriously.
The theory of evolution doesn't pass the scientific method. For something to be deemed scientific, it must be observable and testable.
And since we have both observed evolution and made testable predictions about how it would work, it passes your test for what makes something count as scientific. I mean, I guess you could argue about my use of the word predictions there, but unfortunately for you, that's an argument you're going to lose. But hey, even if we give in to your definition of testable, there are a plethora of experiments out there that test various aspects of evolution, like the E. coli long-term evolution experiment, which has been going since 1988 and is still going strong today. At the time of this recording, there have been 168 papers published regarding this one experiment. And with the way they go about the experiment, not only are they testing predictions, but they can repeat the tests to confirm results and narrow in on the causes. E. coli can be kept alive frozen indefinitely, so they periodically freeze a sample of the population. So when they subject a population to selection pressures, when they want to track down the exact path that their evolution took to get from point A to point B, they can just unfreeze one of the old populations and put them under the same selection pressures in order to effectively run the same test again. So yeah, not only are they testing predictions, it was predicted that E. coli would be able to evolve the ability to metabolize citrate, and they did, they were also able to repeat the experiment in order to narrow down the precursor mutations that later led to the mutation that granted the ability to metabolize citrate. Though, admittedly, this does fall victim to Ray's classic "but they're still bacteria" attack. Ray doesn't seem to understand that accumulation is a thing that happens. Over time, organisms accumulate enough changes that we decide that it counts as a different enough organism to be put in a separate category. Our categorizations of animals are, when all is said and done, entirely arbitrary. So to expect nature to conform to our arbitrary categorizations just demonstrates a lack of understanding of both nature and our categorization of it.
You cannot test something or observe something that supposedly happened 60 million years ago.
Not directly, maybe, but you can observe the evidence of that thing and test various hypotheses about how that evidence came to be. If only direct observation is allowed, then there are a lot of prisoners that need to be released.
Evolution is both unproven and unprovable. It has to be accepted by blind faith.
I'm not a fan of proven or provable as metrics, as proof is generally thought of as being absolute, and that's not how science works.
But the reason it is so embraced by so many is because it gets rid of moral responsibility.
No, it doesn't. Evolution is likely where we get our sense of moral responsibility in the first place. We evolved as a social species, and in a social species, behaviors that we have come to see as moral ones are beneficial, and immoral ones are detrimental. Therefore, there's a selection pressure to be moral. That's where morality comes from. It's not that complicated.
If Darwin was right, then Genesis is wrong in saying that God created man in his own image. And if Genesis falls, everything else crumbles.
Not necessarily. Plenty of Christians accept evolution and also believe that we were made in God's image. Personally, I think the young earth creationist all-or-nothing approach actually makes the most sense, but it is just a fact of reality that Christians exist who don't have any problem with the theory of evolution.
There's no sin, there's no judgment day, and there's definitely no hell.
That sounds okay. It's not ideal, but it's certainly a step up from the "if you suck the judge's dick, he'll give you a free pass" system that Christians advocate for.
That means pornography, fornication, adultery, etc. are nothing but guilt-free pleasures there to help us procreate our species.
Notice the obsession with sex. Every single one of those was sex-related. Why is sex so important to you, Ray? For me, it's just a fun thing that I do sometimes. That's it. Nothing overly special. But the way Christians talk about sex, you'd think it's the most important activity that anyone could possibly engage in, so you better make sure to do it right. I didn't leave the church so that I could have more sex with more people. I left the church because I realized that the Bible was flawed, and a flawed Bible wasn't compatible with the God that I believed in. A God who is all-powerful and can make his book say whatever he wanted it to say, regardless of how many times it's been copied or translated. If I were just after more sex, I could have just had the more sex as a Christian and then prayed to Jesus to forgive me afterwards. Then you get all the sex and all the heaven. Win-win!
Listen to Scripture address the issue of fake science, but look at what it says first. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to your trust.
Just pointing out that Ray isn't reading the words that are on the screen. I can't say this for certain, but if I had to guess, it's because Ray actually prefers the more modernized versions of the Bible, so he doesn't naturally say the thys and thous of the archaic ones like the King James or Geneva translations, but literally the only versions of the Bible that contain the word science anywhere are the archaic ones. And Ray needed a Bible verse that said what he wants it to say about science, so he's stuck with the one verse in a very limited number of translations.
God has entrusted us with the gospel. Make sure you keep it. Don't get caught up in arguments about evolution and forget to share the gospel, because it's the gospel that's the power of God to salvation.
You could avoid that whole thing by just, accepting evolution in the first place and not insisting on it being the linchpin of your worldview. You'd probably have a much higher success rate in the sharing the gospel department if you didn't start the conversation off with, "the foundation of our understanding of biology is wrong, and the next thing I'm going to tell you only matters if you believe me about biology," rather than the tens of thousands of biologists who think I'm an idiot.
And then Paul continues, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called.
So, now, since we're using an archaic translation in order to get that wording, we must ask ourselves, what would this statement have meant to the people who translated it that way in the first place? When those translations were done, the scientific method as we know it today was still in its infancy and would probably have been called something more along the lines of induction or philosophy than science. In the 1600s, science was more likely referring to either a skill at a trade or knowledge that was considered common knowledge. So the science of smithing wasn't an understanding of how a controlled heating and quenching of metal will result in the formation of a stronger crystal lattice in the molecular structure of the final product. It was just being able to actually do the thing, irrespective of whether or not you understood the underlying reason as to why doing it that way would result in a better product. Or it could just be referring to things that are common knowledge. The sky is blue. That is science. The fact that it's blue because of the way the atmosphere interacts with the incoming sunlight to scatter wavelengths closer to the blue end of the spectrum while allowing the rest to pretty much come straight through isn't science. Nobody knew about that back then, so it wasn't science. But the sky being blue sure was. So what this verse actually appears to be saying is to be careful about accepting things as true just because everybody knows that they are true. It's one of the few pieces of actual good advice that can be found in the Bible, and creationists have to pretend that it's really telling you not to believe things just because there's a shitload of empirical evidence backing them up in order to make their worldview work. It really is a shame how badly they have to butcher the Bible in order to continue believing what they believe.
Evolution is portrayed as science when it's nothing of the sort. If you want to hear profane and vain babblings, just join in a conversation with atheists about evolution and the Bible.
Okay, but you just tied the Bible's use of the word science to specifically the science of evolution. So why would we look for an atheist and talk to them about the Bible if we want to see these profane and vain babblings, rather than a scientist who works in a field relevant to evolution? Sure, there is some overlap in that Venn diagram, but there are scientists who would be happy to educate you about evolution, but who are Christian, like Francis Collins, the guy who headed both the Human Genome Project, which was instrumental in advancing our understanding of evolution at the genetic level, and BioLogos, an organization that is explicitly dedicated to explaining how Christianity and science are compatible.
When someone doesn't believe they'll be held accountable for every idle word spoken, they'll quickly give themselves to moral depravity.
Depends what you consider to be morally depraved. I'm a bit of an edge case since it's basically my job to be a bit of a shit disturber. I mean, honestly, Ray would probably consider my use of the word shit in shit disturber to be morally depraved, so maybe not. But yeah, when you don't think an all-powerful surveillance state that disapproves of sex and swearing is constantly watching you and reading your mind, then you might be less embarrassed about sex, so won't mind talking about it when Ray inevitably brings it up, and you may even throw in the occasional colorful metaphor.
Your use of language has altered since our arrival. It is currently laced with, shall I say, more colorful metaphors. Double dumbass on you, and so forth.
You mean the profanity?
Yes.
That's simply the way they talk here.
Worth noting is Ray's framing here. He's once again talking about it as though atheists are obsessed with sex, but when watching his videos, I don't think I've ever seen one of the people that he's talking to bring up sex first. That always comes from Ray, usually in the form of the question, have you ever looked at a woman with lust in your heart?
Jesus said, if you look with lust, you commit adultery in your heart. Have you ever looked with lust?
Followed immediately by questioning the person about either their sex lives or their porn viewing habits. So they will turn to depravity once Ray changes the subject to steer the conversation in that direction. Tell me, if the question of how quickly subjects you consider to be depraved come up in a conversation are one of the metrics by which you measure if someone is a good person, what does it mean when you are always the one bringing them up? Just some food for thought there, Ray.
And what's more, in their foolishness, they'll judge themselves as being intelligent. As the scriptures say in the book of Romans, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
On its own, that verse does seem to be saying basically what Ray is claiming it says. But if we want to get all, intellectually honest or something, then we can read verse 23, where it continues, and exchange the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. So this isn't talking about atheists who accept evolution. This is talking about idol worshippers, who in ancient Roman society would have been fairly normal. Taking it back to the archaic use of the word science, it was common knowledge at the time that you had to pay homage to your household idols and regularly visit the temple idols, bring a variety of offerings. So be wary of this common knowledge, since Bible God isn't too fond of idols. Is Surfshark gone? I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you this in a sponsored video, but go to donate.vicerhino.com now to donate to Project Share. They're really good. And if you want to be if you want to be able to answer Ray's question of are you a good person with yes, you need to donate to Project Share.
Here's an interview with a young lady who was totally convinced that evolution was true, but watch what happens.
I'm probably going to be skipping most of this. It's Ray's dishonest editing paired with Ray's word games. There usually isn't much substance there. Even if we pretend that Ray doesn't dishonestly edit people or selectively choose interviews and clips that make him look as good as possible, the best case scenario for Ray here is that he managed to trick one random person on the street into agreeing with him. And even in order to get it to the level of he tricked them, you have to ignore the very real possibility that a lot of people that Ray interviews probably feel bound by social norms to not be rude to him, and so rather than argue or just walk away, they'll give a perfunctory agreement just for the sake of politely escaping the conversation.
So I believe there is an afterlife just because we're the only kind of creatures that are the way they are, and our souls are too big to just end and that's it.
Oh, isn't that just like me to warn you that I'll be skipping something before not skipping that thing? I'm so good at my job. But hey, if there's anything else I don't cut out, this is some important context. This person is starting from a position of, I believe there is an afterlife, not atheism. I mean, I guess technically you could believe in an afterlife and still fit the definition of atheism, but that would be more than a bit unusual. This person probably does believe in at least a deistic god of some sort.
Yeah, we believe in justice and truth and righteousness. We set up court systems and have judges, and we send people to jail for doing things that are wrong. None of the beasts do that. Mm-hmm. Why do you think we're like that?
Probably has to do with, we've talked about evolution, right? I mean, I'm sure from the very beginning, we didn't know much. Like the cavemen, they knew very minimal living skills, but as time went on, we learned more and more. So I think that's what makes us different, as opposed to, primates. They're stuck. Okay,
not only are there several obvious cuts there, leaving us unsure of the connection between Ray's question and her answer. I've seen Ray edited answers to questions other than the one he asked, so I'm not going to pretend that that isn't a possibility here. But if we assume that he only cut out clips of her thinking and stumbling over ums and uhs, and that whole thing was honestly an answer to what he asked her, she's not entirely right, but also not entirely wrong. Yes, evolution is likely the explanation for our morality. No, it's not because we learned more than our evolutionary precursors, although that part is debatable depending on what you mean by learned. And no, the non-human primates are not excluded from this moral development. They show similar moral behavior to humans, with there being a correlation between pro-social behaviors and cooperative breeding. And humans just so happen to be at the highest end of both the pro-social behavior and cooperative breeding scales. So while there is a divide between humans and non-human primates when it comes to morality, the divide is not as stark as creationists would have you believe.
Do you believe in God?
I do. I believe there's a God out there.
Okay, there you go. Ray starts out his video talking about atheists, and then to prove his point, he shows an interview with a person who is not an atheist. Well done, Ray. You had one job.
Do you respect Jesus?
Yes, of course.
He destroyed evolution with one sentence. Did you know that? Do you know what he said?
No, what did he say?
In the beginning, God made them male and female. Evolution doesn't say that.
That was the shocking 5-second evolution buster that Ray has? Like, holy fuck, I don't even need to turn to Francis Collins to make that one work. God created them male and female. They weren't male and female from the start, but he created them in a way that would cause both male and female to develop. Boom, done. Easy peasy. I mean, either that or evolution disproves God, and there's so much evidence for evolution that, it happened. So I guess there's no God. Your choice, Ray.
Doesn't make any provision for male and female. See those little drawings they give you as proof of evolution of bent over apes standing up slowly? Remember those ones? Mm-hmm. There's no female there. Have you noticed that? No. They're misogynistic. There's no female in those little pictures. It's all males.
Okay, sure, why not? Ray wants more naked ape ladies in the textbooks. Ray Comfort is a furry confirmed. Wait, this is why he's so obsessed with bananas. This is why the banana thing. Oh my god, Ray! Just give in to your kinks, man. We're here for you. Come out. Just enjoy yourself. Come on. Stop with the Christian shtick and do your banana furry porn thing that you apparently want to do. But, I mean, back on topic though, please tell me that you don't think that the evolutionary picture is that only male apes exist until humans evolved? That's idiotic even for you, Ray.
If there was a female, where did it start and why did it start? And there's no reproduction without a female.
Asexual reproduction is a thing, Ray. Plenty of organisms do that, and not just microbes either. There's a whole ass species of lizards that have evolved past the need for males, and so reproduce through parthenogenesis. But in a neat little evolutionary twist, they won't produce eggs unless ovulation is stimulated through the act of having lesbian lizard sex. You didn't need male and female before male and female evolved, because the reproduction was asexual until sex evolved.
So the Bible makes sense. Do you give any credibility to the Bible?
I can't say too much because even though I was raised Catholic and I went to Catholic school and all that good stuff, I don't really remember paying much attention to what actually was said in the Bible.
Well, if you had, you probably wouldn't have the attitude of, yeah, it seems good, because there's a lot of bad shit in there. Just saying.
But God's made provision. Do you know how he remedied death for humanity? Mm-mm. You actually do, but you don't understand it. So I'm going to start right from the beginning.
Wow, Ray. Normally I have to infer the whole they are saying they know what people think in spite of what those people tell them thing, but here it is on full display. Do you know X? No. Well, actually you do. You just don't understand it. Mind-bogglingly arrogant, Ray.
And see if I can give you a little bit of light on this dark subject. Okay. Do you think you're a good person?
I believe so.
I'm going to try and change your mind.
And the way he's going to do that is by pretending like the Ten Commandments are the universal source of morality, when Christians can't even agree on how to split the Ten Commandments up into 10 commandments. And even that is ignoring the fact that what modern Christians call the Ten Commandments are actually God's rough draft, with the 10 commandments that are actually called the 10 Commandments by the Bible being found in Exodus 34 and containing such universal and timeless moral commands like observe the Feast of Weeks, and don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Weird that the universal source of morality isn't even universally agreed on by the very people who claim that it is the universal source of morality. But yeah, the rest is just him evangelizing, trying to convince her that she needs Jesus, so that's where we'll leave it for today. Today's comment of the day comes to us from DragonHealer7588, who says, "First time I've seen your smile. Nice smile. You should do it more often in your videos, where appropriate of course. Smiley emoji." Thanks for watching. I'll be back next Friday with more, but if you need to get your Rhino fix in before then, I livestream with Cirrus every Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern on my other channel, The Watering Hole. Thanks to Tim Robertson for being my Patreon and sponsorships manager, Piper for being my editor, and special thanks as always to my patrons, Dark Ray Killer, Reggie Johnson, Paul Sherman, Old Man Joe, Amy Marine Burned, Bobby Langhorn, Ava Barsbold, and Jessica O. Bell. There were a lot because apparently I forgot to do that last month as well. Who are the bananas that I didn't manage to fit inside the script that is my channel? I said channel. If you'd like to explore my channels, and I actually did manage to fit it in this channel, so they're in this video, script, whatever. Fuck it, keep it. No second takes on this one. You can join us on Patreon. I know you'll all be rushing over there after that amazing call to action. Patreon is as little as $1 per week over at patreon.com/ViceRhino, or by supporting the channel in one of the other methods that can be found at links.vicerhino.com, which is also where you'll find links to my other projects. If for whatever reason you want to send me stuff, my PO box address is in the description. See you next time! So the autofocus on the camera seems to have decided that the giant benchy behind me, the boat, is a face. So if I'm out of focus for some of this, I apologize. This is the real ending for the thing. I'm sorry about all the times that I've done stuff like this in this particular video, but at least it's a short one, so you don't have too much of me to struggle through. That's what she said.